These Mopar Rubicon Edition extended fender flares are for those of you that have a 1997 to 2006 TJ and are looking to give it that slightly wider Rubicon stance. From the factory, the Rubicons had a fender flare that was about 1 inch wider than the standard TJ. So if you are looking for that look, then these are going to be a nice option for you. That additional width is also going to be for those of you that need full tire coverage by your fender flares in order to stay legal where you live, or somebody who just wants that additional coverage to help keep the tires from kicking stuff up on the side of the Jeep, which can just make it dirty or scratch it. So there are quite a few different reasons that you might be looking into these flares. Now, these are by Mopar, so you know that they're going to fit very well. They're made by the same people that made the Jeep and all of the other factory flares. However, you are going to pay a bit of a premium for a flare that has the Mopar name that comes out of a Mopar box. If you're just interested in a wider flare, there are some other options out there by some aftermarket companies that are going to be a little bit less expensive than this. But if you're one of those people that likes to stick with the Mopar brand, these are going to be a great option. So these flares are going to be a full inch wider than the factory flares. Of course, if you already have a Rubicon, these are going to be a direct replacement, but a lot of you are going to be installing these on a non-Rubicon Jeep to get that slightly wider flare. These are going to be very well built. They're going to fit really, really well, again, because they do come right from Mopar. They're going to be a plastic construction that has a bit of a smooth finish. So if you wanted to paint these, you could, or of course, you can just leave them bare. This is going to be an easy bolt-on 1 out of 3 wrench installation. However, you are going to have to give yourself probably around 2 hours to get these installed, and even more time if you have some rust on your TJ. And let's face it, most of us do at this point, because even the newest TJ is getting up there in years. If you do have some rust on your Jeep, make sure that you spray all of the hardware that hold your flares into place well before you get started. That is going to pay dividends in the end. Now, a lot of the hardware that holds the factory flares in place is going to be a bolt that goes into a nutsert in the body of the Jeep. Now, if you spray them, if you don't have a lot of rust, if you're careful, you can break that bolt loose without spinning the nutsert. If you do have too much rust, you spin the bolt, it also spins the nutsert. You do have to get a little bit creative to get the old hardware out of the way so that you can remove those old flares. Now, a lot of those nutserts you can get to the back side of, and you can hold them with a set of channel locks or pair of pliers, but some of them you can't. And in that case, you have to get really creative with cutting off bolts, drilling things out. It gets a little bit more involved at that point. So again, spray all of your nut and bolt hardware well ahead of time, give you the best chance of removing all of your factory hardware without any issues. So all you need to do to get these installed is remove those factory flares by removing all of the factory hardware. Of course, up front, you'll also have to remove the turn signal socket from the turn signal housing in order to get that factory flare out of the way. Once you have it completely removed from your Jeep, the front, you can snap the turn signal housing from the factory flare into your aftermarket flare and pop that flare onto the Jeep using the factory hardware. Because these are made by Mopar, they're gonna fit in all of the factory locations. There's no drilling, no modification needed. Take the old flare off, put the new one on in its place. This set of 6 flares is gonna run you right around $400, and like I said before, that is going to be a little bit more expensive than some of the other options on the market. If you're okay with your flares coming out of a box that doesn't say Mopar on it, you can definitely save some money and get an extended flare. In fact, you can get an even wider flare if you want one to give you even more coverage and a different look from some of the aftermarket companies. But if you want to stick with something that could have come on your Jeep out of the factory with something that's Mopar, you are going to have to pay a little bit of a premium to get these flares. So if you're looking for a factory replacement Rubicon style flare, I definitely recommend taking a look at these ones from Mopar that you can find right here at extremeterrain.com.